Yeah. I'm gonna come up to the front. Also, hello to anybody and everybody on live. I'll give you a quick word up front. So, firstly, thank you all for being here tonight. This is our first time at this venue, as you can tell by the obvious chair amalgamation. If any of you need to get up and walk around for a few seconds so you don't aggravate sciatica, please feel free. We're super excited to be here. This was just kind of an opportunity that came into play that Cassie was able to organize because she is really the mastermind of this and the creator of the club. So I will let her speak for her behalf in just a second, but just want to say a quick thank you to all of you. Our goal for the club, correct me if I'm wrong, is to elevate the astrologers we know. And we have the privilege of being in Sedona, which means we have astrologers that are like Maurice, which we are really just like grateful to be in the presence of, let alone work with and to learn from. And then we have people who are like me, who are up and coming and given a chance and kind of being able to showcase them and learn what they know. So that being said, we do have a donation jar at the front. If you feel called to come forward and donate, we would be ever so grateful, especially given the fact of his breadth of work. It would just be really deeply appreciated. We also have a Venmo. If you feel called to that later, we can give you the information at the end of the class.
Hi everyone, I'm Cassie Opea. I started the astrology club about 3 or 4 years ago. Out of a desire to have more local astrological education, and it has really been like a pleasure in my life to get to be the host and the coordinator for our 50th event. And they have been all in person because we really value meeting each other and making those connections and expanding the community. So thank you all for being here. I'm a Scorpio rising, Gemini sun, and Capricorn moon. Bathrooms are this way. If anyone needs one, it's down here and up the stairs.
I think it's a beautiful venue. Are you all comfortable?
Yeah.
And yeah, we can get some astrology and get some ponchos.
Well said, and candles.
So I'll try to do a selfie.
Hey!
With
Selfie. Gonna do 2 of them.
Yeah, it's
Cheers. Beautiful. And absolutely thank you, Cassie, for initiating this group, because this is an idea I've had for a long time. Being too busy and going around, I kept postponing it. So when I saw there's a strong drive and good brains behind it, I was relieved. I'm happy to help and support. So back to some of the announcements. You have some books here which are free to take, some magazines. This is a journal it's very advanced, from England. It's about research in astrology. So they use a lot of academic techniques to prove some things, which is really, well, I would say, important in our field, because we learn a lot from our teachers, but we don't always have the opportunity to actually test our knowledge rigorously, and these guys do it. So if you're into that, check it out. Some flyers here for those who would like to take astrology to the next level. There are options for absolute beginners, for more advanced. So I don't know if you got some. I'll just give it a distribution if you can pass them on again. And there are some handouts floating with the dates that we're going to talk about. So what I suggest, if you don't understand the astrology language, for those of you who are new, take some notes next to those dates. And we have a mailing list here. If you would like to get a copy of the slides, you can write your name and I'll collect this at the end. So there are two lists, one for here and one for here. And then, is this yours? Yeah. If you want free resources, you know, you can join my YouTube channel. There's a lot of, you know, plenty of educational videos and analysis of upcoming cycles. So you can also get some of these. You want to pass it on. In the back. And here we are, 2026. Started with a bang.
Yeah.
You may know. I'm going to go through some announcements before we dive deep into the subject. Just want to check time. So first of all, just let's tune into the new year with blessings. Close your eyes, prayer pose, or hold hands. Yeah, we come together, star beings, seekers, open minds, open hearts, welcoming the new, stepping into this new cycle with curiosity, devotion, and a lot of ideas, a lot of creativity for this year. May we be all blessed, protected, guided. May we advance into a better future and shine our light and inspire one another. Thank you. For compassion, health, peace, and prosperity. This is the program. If you want to, like I said, there are different stages of involvement. You can take just some classes, or you can dive into the full diploma program and master the art of analysis. There's a group on Facebook called Evolutionary Skies, which is, again, free, where we talk a lot of astrology. And it's a lot of fun. We analyze the charts of what's going on in the moment. And yeah, check it out. This weekend, a webinar on the asteroid belt. It's online. If it's a little more advanced, but if that interests you, just let me know. And we're going to Omega Institute. I don't know if you're aware of Omega, upstate New York, with Merriman, who's present with us. And the theme is wounds and remedies in astrology. So we're going to go, this is the actual day that the planet Centaur asteroid Chiron moves into Taurus. So it's a brand new cycle, and Chiron is the wounded healer. So there you are.
Thank you.
It's beautiful, it's in the forest. I don't know if you're familiar with Omega. It's a great time of year. It's going to be the solstice. So it's a solstice celebration, astrology, and good food. And next level, praise. That's really a dream of mine, to go back to the land of myth, where a lot of astrology originated, both by inspiration and in presence. So the island of Amorgos is is next to Santorini. Amazing beauty. That's August, and that's going to be the solar eclipse. So, if you're an eclipse chaser,
Yes.
and here we are with 2026. So, some of you may know the symbols, some of you may not. It's an opportunity to learn. 2026 is a year that in many ways continues 2025. A lot of new cycles started in 2025, but it was, one leg in the new, one leg in the old. So there's an attempt to plant new seeds. And there's a lot of hesitation as to how, what will sprout from these seeds, and also how strongly we want to focus and go in such and such direction. When we are in times where there's so much going on astrologically, you have all the slow moving planets, all of them, moving into new signs. And we're talking about cycles that take 14 years, 7 years. Each one has a different timing, and they all happen to synchronize between 2025 and 2026. So it's a big deal. And when such a thing happens, there's chaos. Because it's a time of creation, it's a time of elimination, and it's a time basically where there's a lot, again, a desire for new without fully knowing what it is. So quite often in these times, we know better what we don't want any longer. Like, I know I'm done with that. I want to eliminate those things from my life and in general, and I want to step into a new identity. Do I want to move to Sedona? Do I want to move out of Sedona? Do I want to divorce? Do I want to marry? We're all can feel to a degree or another this sense of transition and this feeling that we're either ready for the next step or we are projected into the next step even if we don't think we're ready.
Keep into it.
Yeah. But I suspect that by next year when we meet here, we'll have stories to tell. Right? Because these shifts can be in the ether, can be in the zeitgeist, can be political. We already see how much is going on in the world. It's kind of a new world order being reshuffled. And some of us like it, some of us don't, but it's part of this chaotic transition. Yeah. And we don't know yet, what emerges from that. There is a risk of destruction in these times, because as everything is being redefined and there's some these new currents that are very powerful streaming through, it's almost like the Wild West. So everybody's rushing into this new territory and we all want to grab our place and put our flag on this virgin land. So there can be more of that aggressive energy. A lot of planets are moving into fire and air signs, which are, there are 4 elements in astrology: water, earth, and then air, fire. So we've been under a lot of water, earth in the past, 5 years or so. Predominantly, it's never completely so. And when you have water and earth, you feel a contraction. And contraction means elimination. I don't want this. This doesn't work any longer. We need to change. There's a sense of internal criticism and shedding with processing. When we move into fire and air, the sense of inhale, the expansion is now, the stronger impulse, which also means it's more creative. This is a time we're entering where we can rewrite our script. There's a lot of newness. And it's both challenging and exciting. But the energy is definitely into risk-taking, into pushing boundaries, into not compromising your truth any longer. The fire principle is a principle of presence and being outspoken. So as I said, it can get also aggressive, but at the core, it's a creative energy. Now, usually, in most times, there's a balance between the water, the earth, the fire, and so forth. If we associate them also by frequency, earth and water are feminine, air and fire are masculine. Now, what does that mean? It doesn't, we all have all the elements in our chart. So I'm born male, but I have a lot of water in my chart, so it doesn't necessarily mean that you are a woman or a man based on that. But it means that there's this expansion contraction cycle. And when we speak about the predominance, that there is, I would say it's quite unique, the amount of planets that are moving into air, fire, without any earth and water. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. So this is something quite unique for our times. The last one that is in water is Jupiter. This guy. And Jupiter is now in the sign of Cancer until the end of June, and is then going to move into Leo, which is another fire sign. So once Jupiter moves into Leo, the nodes are also moving into Leo Aquarius, and that's it. We're in a drought. We are stepping into the fire air, which is this opening, expansion, newness, and a lot of energy. So this expansive principle is, like I said, both exciting, but we need to manage it well, because fire, think about fire as wildness. Okay? It's untamed, it's primal. So it's an energy that reconnects you with your wildness. In a good way, you can feel free. You can feel like you're stepping into your new identity and you're running. What's the risk? What do you think?
Freedom.
The risk of freedom? What's the risk of freedom?
Yeah, you're not the same anymore. You let go of everything that doesn't serve you.
But that's not a risk. That can be a good
The
thing.
risk is the unknown.
Yeah.
Letting
yeah.
go of ignorance.
Say again?
Letting go of ignorance.
Letting go of ignorance. That's a good intention. But fire doesn't guarantee that.
But it is a risk.
Yeah.
Maybe overdoing something.
There's excess. It's an energy that doesn't have a container. It's wild. So it's an energy where the fire is burning and you have a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of new ideas, a lot of, you know, wanting to advance your goals. So we can say the engine is powerful. If you want to create something, if you have projects, if you're ready to lift your sleeves and build your house and do stuff, this is it. It's time for you to go for your dreams. But there is no safety net when there's no earth and water. So we hope you can swim. We hope you know how to glide. And that usually happens, you know, if we speak economically, when we see cycles of fire and air, and then sooner or later the earth and water will come back, then the contraction comes. And then we see, oh, we overspent. Oh, we pushed too hard. You know, and then there's all the accounting that comes. And can we pay those debts or not? You know, if we look back at 2008, when we had the economic crisis, it was a little bit of that. It was not exclusively earth to, you know, fire to earth, but there was a lot of that movement from expansion to a time where suddenly, you know, we have to test earth. What is sustainable? Is it sustainable? And it's a natural cycle of life. When we have fire and air like we're going to have this year, and especially the second half of the year, you know, it's building up. The first ones to move into fire are going to be Saturn and Neptune in Aries. Then in April, it's Uranus. And then in July, it's going to be Jupiter and the nodes. So they're each sequencing in during the spring into the summer. And then once we hit the summer, August, that's it. They're all in. So, like I said, this is an energy that requires that we take risk. So the risk is necessary. If we try something new, that's an important message of wisdom, is that you cannot guarantee safety, but I'm saying necessarily so. How do you know how far you can go if you don't go too far? Right? You need to push yourself to the limit, to understand that this is the limit. That's part of the philosophy. So this is a time where we may want to engage more, and we may want to connect more socially, and we may want to actualize our own creative purposes. But you can be mindful about it and say, you know, I know that there's a lot of enthusiasm now. I do want to think about sustainability and not have to, you know, go from an absolute excess to having to shrink it all. What I'm saying is that you can mitigate that aspect of balancing between creativity and sustainability. Does that make sense? So 2026 is very powerful that way. It's very unique, both because there's a lot of shifts, and then because those shifts are all in the same elements. So we see this politically already, right? We see this return to expansionism, which, again, we have to test how far we want to go, what's appropriate, and how does this redefine the world we're in, and where we want to be, how we want to manage things. So this can be a mirror of what is happening individually. Does that make sense? So, but another thing that, may happen as a result of this expansionism, and I'm talking again about global themes, global dynamics, new boundaries, new countries. When we see what's going on in the Middle East with Gaza and Israel, this call, you can understand that this fire can bring, on the one hand, more sparks and fire, but it can also call for this sense that I do not want to compromise any longer, and a call for independence, a call for sovereignty, a call for people to want to be independent. So there is going to be a lot of rebellion, resistance, and it's not a year where people are just going to take it. If you need to compromise, you have 3 months to do so. After that, it's gonna be more feisty. But we can see this, this call for sovereignty, for autonomy, and wanting to start a new journey, a new identity. So, we speak about Palestinians, Israelis. There could be a call for independence, and we may also see this in other places that are now not yet ignited, but may become so. It's not on the map yet.
Iran is igniting right now.
Iran.
As we
I mean,
speak.
we're going to speak about that very soon. Yeah.
Would that mean, in reference to the fire and earth, also ask for what you want? In reference to really what you truly want versus compromising with your choices?
Yeah. I would say definitely, like I said, you may feel ready to take on this new step, but you may not be completely clear as to what it is yet. So that's the element of adventure and risk that we're talking about. Okay? And the necessary, I would say, you need to invest resources. Some of it will come back, some of it won't. Don't be stingy. You kind of need to put your edge in. You kind of need to invest. And when I say invest, it's not just money, it's energy and stuff. Now, we speak about all this energy, right? Neptune is moving into Aries. Saturn is moving into Aries. When we are in such a creative and adventurous and untamed kind of mindset and zeitgeist, what is needed?
Trust.
Trust, number one. What else? If you're on the go, right? You're on the go, you have dreams to create, you want to engage, the world is your oyster. And I'm telling you, it's time to invest. Don't hold back. What do you need?
The plan.
Before the plan. Fuel. You need to power your dreams and ideas. What does power mean? Where is the power? How do we power our lives?
Rest.
Rest?
Clarity?
Inspiration. Inspiration.
Resources.
Inspiration? Inspiration brings us energy. So I'm asking you, you know, how do we power? Where do we get the energy?
Dreams.
Fire.
Many things. There's energy on a spiritual level, and there's energy on a material level. You said fuel. Do we actually have the fuel? Can our body follow our spirit? Talk about earth versus fire. The fire is the spirit. I want to do, I want to go. I am forever 20-year-old. And the body is the earth and says, can I carry it? Can I go as far, as fast, and as wide as I would like to? Do I have the money? Do I have the financial support? Do I have the social support? Do I have a support system? So big questions are going to come to us individually and collectively about how do we power our life? How do we power our dreams? So what is going to be part of the discussion in Washington and Moscow and everywhere? Energy supply. Energy supply. Our grids are going to be tested to see if we can supply the energy for all the expansion that we are aiming for. Technological, astronomical, going to space, AI. So a lot of this more, go. Where do we get it from? How do we sustain it? So these are going to be questions that are going to be part of the discussion. And if we look at our current power grids, they are not to standard. You know, they're not going to meet the demands. So there is going to be a need to adapt to new sources of energy. And that's going to be an interesting, you know, part of the discovery and part of the exploration of this new era, starting in 2026, but moving into the following years, because it's not a one-year process. But that is part of the narrative for these times. And so ask yourself personally, where do I get my strength? Where do I get my power? How can I move forward in my life, live the life that I'm meant to live, connect to my soul, but be able to sustain myself, power it, and be smart about it? Because, like I said, we have resources that are spiritual. You find yourself, you know, working through the night because you're so passionate about what you're doing, and you forget to sleep, and you forget to rest, and you forget to eat, because you get the food from spirit, right? But at some point your body will want some attention too. Now, we look at some of these dates. I'm going to come back to this. Recently, you know, January, we went through this triple conjunction of Sun, Venus, and Mars, which is a very militaristic Capricorn Mars energy that led to the Venezuela episode and you know what happened on the political level. But I know that many people on a personal level went through a lot of identity crisis as well as we stepped into the new year. I don't know how you weather that. Coming up, end of January, is going to be the Mars-Pluto conjunction at 3 Aquarius. So I'm going to send you these slides. Just put your name in the mailing list, and you can review and revisit that later. So I'm going to come back to this and see what that means. These are the articles on my website. So it's going to be easier, to read that and review some of the contents we're talking about. But what I want to bring up is 2028.
Hey.
Yeah, we're done with 2026. Let's move to 2028.
Cares about 27. There's nothing important happening in 27.
You got the point about where we're at?
I guess he's skipping it, that's all.
We're time
Wow.
traveling.
Because 2028, after we're galloping, and I'm using that verb consciously, we're entering the year of the horse.
Yeah.
So we're galloping into this new cycle. 2028 is going to be the first, I would say, milestone or the first station where we're going to have a checks and balance. Saturn, the planet Saturn, is moving back into Earth. And it's going to move into Taurus, which is about resources. It's about money, it's about Earth, it's about sustainability. And it's going to square Pluto in Aquarius. That whole expansion drive is going to square, the reality check of Saturn in Taurus. It cannot be more earthy than Saturn in Taurus. Mm-hmm. So what I want to say is that as we enter into this, into this phase of expansion, the main reality check will be 2028. And we're going to see what stands and what doesn't. We're going to see what collapses and what actually roots. So the rooting is happening, within that 2-year phase. And I'm talking again about global things. So there may be an economic crisis in 2028 because of the excess that we are going to have now, right? So we're ready to know that we're going to go overboard and that we're going to have to pay debts. In one way or another, it's not just money. It can be energy, it can be overextending ourselves in one way or another, overcommitting. But this is one of the important reality checks that I want to highlight now. So everything I'm talking about as I go through all these planets and all these phases, keep in mind 2028 is when there's an audit. Okay? And when we're looking at the numbers and we're seeing what computes and what doesn't. So we can be smart about it already and not have to face a crisis in 2028. Considering also that this is not a year for fear, it's a year for trust and expansion. But we don't be stupid about it. That's what I'm saying. So this is kind of a huge wake-up call, 2028, that will recalibrate, that will eliminate, that will sort. Once again, we planted many seeds, 25, 26, 27, planting. 28 is what is actually rooting, what actually stays, and what is being eliminated.
Is the Chiron a 9-year cycle?
Chiron, the nodes are a 9-year cycle. Chiron is a 50-year cycle. But Chiron is going to stay here in Taurus, it's moving on the solstice, as I said. It's going to stay 7 years in Taurus. And then Saturn's coming in 28 for that. This is what we went through, January 10, the Grand Cross, you know, the events in Minneapolis, Venezuela, a lot of tension with the use of power. How do we use our power? But what you see here, this is the next conjunction, January 27, where Mars and Pluto, the sun's not too far. Can you see? Am I in the way? Are coming together. So this is an important cycle. Mark this date. And you also see that these two are on the border. The day that we have the conjunction between Mars and Pluto is pretty much the day that Neptune moves into Aries. So those last days of January are going to be revealing. How so? First of all, from an astrological point of view, as Neptune and then later Saturn moves into Aries, Neptune stays 14 years in Aries, Saturn stays 3 years in Aries. You have to pay attention to everything that Mars is doing during that time, because Mars is the dispositor of Aries. So as you have these larger cycles, big players coming into the sign of Aries, you have to look at the agent of Aries, the ambassador of Aries, Mars, and what Mars is doing in Aquarius that time. Okay, so we're going to talk a lot about Mars, because Mars is always interesting, it's always a wild card, but also because we have these two important players in Aries, and Mars is kind of their agent. So if you want to know what's going on with this Saturn-Neptune, where's Mars today? What, is it changing signs? And that's going to give you an indication. So as you can see, you know, some of you don't understand these symbols, as I understood from our introduction. Just look at this as a clock. And each of these ones is the hand of a clock. So it's not just two hands, it's a lot of hands. But this is like the cosmic clock. Because as the planets move, it's all cycles. Astrology is a study of cycles. What time is now? Right? We're in a time of a Saturn-Neptune conjunction, etc. So, what do you think may be advanced, may be on the agenda for this conjunction of Mars-Pluto in Aquarius, end of January?
No compromise.
Yes, no compromise. Mars represents agency. If we look at the symbol of Mars, you know, it's this masculine arrow. It has to do with energy going out. It has to do with independence. It also has to do with standing up for yourself.
Yes.
Mars says, no more, right? But when Mars is with Pluto and in Aquarius, where is this kind of agency, but also defense message applied? In the mind. Aquarius is the sign of mind. What else is Aquarius?
Collective.
I see a shift, I see a power dynamic and like at all costs energy.
A power struggle,
Yeah.
possible. Now, when you look at Aquarius, it's an air sign. It's a social sign. So when you have Mars Pluto defensive in a social sign, there's a shift in alliances. Who are your allies?
It almost feels like you dance without caring.
It could be, but it's first of all a reshuffling of who are my friends, who were my friends, and who are my new friends. So there can be a severing of ties, not on a romantic level, more on a social level, or on if we speak politics, who are my friends? Who are my allies? What's my network? So when we speak about NATO and we speak about, you know, South Americans, all these like groupings of we're together and no, we're not together any longer, we're with you now, you know, there can be a change of alliances.
To add to everything you're saying, yeah, it's Mars, Pluto that are exact, but the Sun, Mercury, and Venus are all involved too, and like Venus's values, Mercury's communication, and Sun's identity. So all of that is exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah. And, you know, we're going to see how this kind of builds up, because we're talking about January 27, this is kind of the next step, and then we're going into the eclipses, right, mid to late February. Now, Neptune just moves into Aries, and Mars is with Pluto. When Mars is with Pluto, on the one hand, we have this defensive and need to stand up for yourself and say, you know, I don't want to be your friend, I'm going to be his friend or her friend. There can be a shift, but usually Mars-Pluto is a time where you are running out of fuel, where you can feel that whatever you were doing and running and about to accomplish is suddenly coming to a dead end. And there can be a feeling like I'm stuck. We talked about energy and power. Suddenly you run out of fuel. You run out of power. The power's out. This can happen psychologically, where you feel depleted, or somebody, you know, you were expecting a contract and that contract doesn't come through, or, you know, you don't get what you want. However, the message of Mars-Pluto is change or die.
No point, no more return.
Simple. So change or die. Mars goes. Pluto says you need a new strategy. You need to redefine. And Pluto says if you don't go deep, you search for new answers, that's it. It's the end of it. So all of us have this degree somewhere in our charts, right? For some it's in the relationship house, for others it's a career house. You know, we each have a different configuration.
Are you talking about Mars or what?
Mars, Pluto,
Mars
that conjunction
and Pluto. Okay.
at 3 Aquarius. What do you say, Gigi?
What did I say?
What do you say?
My birthday is pretty close to that, so if I can just live, I'll be good. That's all I care about. This past year sucked. If I seriously make it through that day, I'm grateful.
You will.
Thanks.
All,
Thanks, guys.
we're your support system here.
Gigi, what day is your birthday?
The 23rd. And then I've been having Pluto, you know, like get with me quite a bit. So
I almost feel like that this connotation, let's call it that, is a reference of like you can't walk your old path anymore.
Yeah.
But you cannot return to the path anymore because it's gone. So you're stuck in the dead end because you need to move in a new direction on purpose.
Now, what happens is as you get that, some people will try to push harder.
Right.
It's not working, but
Yeah.
if I use my hammer,
Yeah.
I'm going to push harder, that may work, and it doesn't. So, on January 27, we all give a call to Gigi.
Thanks, guys.
And we have a gathering here.
Yes, yeah.
Birthday party.
What may also happen, you know, we speak about Aquarius, we talked about alliances, groups, who are our peers, who stays and who goes. That's part of the change. I say change or die. In this case, it's change your alliances.
Or suffer or die.
Yeah. So who are you with? Who are you pairing with? Who are you connecting with? And what are your goals? Aquarius represents the future. The other thing that Aquarius represents is technology, innovations. So this can also be a time where we're questioning, how are we doing with all our technology? Yeah, exactly. And so as they are planning to build, you know, data centers in Arizona, because they I don't know why in Arizona,
Yeah.
because there's no water here,
No water, yeah.
but
It's very hot.
it's very hot. So that can be part of this Mars-Pluto. I say we're reaching a dead end. Are we able to move forward with these big plans? And is that going to lead to some kind of crisis in technological fields? Yeah. Yeah.
You know, because I've been looking at that and wondering about, you know, the intense pressure around the resources, the energy needed for AI, which is of course the Aquarius, and that this, you know, is also a war, and it's ruled by Saturn, so we're reaching the limitation of our resources.
Absolutely. Now, I'm going to talk about Neptune in Aries. That takes us back to that Mars. Be patient, and we're going to touch on that. But another thing that can be relevant for this kind of cluster, I would say, you know, this can be a time for new inventions, because creativity, you know, crisis is the mother of all invention. Is that the way to say it?
Yes.
Necessity, right? So when we are stuck, when things don't move, we become very creative because we have to.
Improvise.
You have to improvise, you have to think harder. Now, this cycle is extremely important for what's going on between Russia and Ukraine. Because the war in Russia and Ukraine started under a Pluto-Mars cycle in February 2022. And Zelensky's sun is 3 Aquarius. Okay? So this is a time where there's going to be likely a shift in the dynamics of that particular conflict. And we talk about alliances, you know, who's going to support who? Is the support dwindling? Is there going to be a new source of support? Interesting. Yeah, it's landing right on his chart, and it's likely going to be a turning point in, you know, for him personally, but also in the whole, you know, dynamic of the region.
It's a very interesting dynamic between these two countries, because for the longest times they were one country.
Of course.
And when you go there, you realize they all call themselves still Russians.
Yeah.
They're not two countries, they're just two states.
I mean, it's a little bit of the same what's going on in everywhere. All these conflicts, right? Gaza and Israel, they're also kind of very similar.
Yeah.
It seems to be around sovereignty, though.
Sovereignty, land. Chiron is entering Taurus.
Resources.
Land. But there's also this, you know, let me get to it. Get ahead of myself. So this is his chart, sorry. I was actually prepared to put it up. So this is the start of the war. This is the start of the war. You see a Mars-Pluto cycle. And that's him. He's born with a Sun-Mars-Venus opposition, so it's right on him. So that's going to be part of what I'm saying. The eclipse, February 17th, is a big day. It's a big day ceremoniously. It's the beginning of the year of the fire horse. So the Chinese New Year usually begins with the second new moon of the year, which usually lands in Aquarius. This time it's a little later. It's the very end of Aquarius, 28 degrees. So the eclipse coincides this year with the Chinese New Year. So there's going to be huge celebrations in Asia. And the fire horse is exactly how it sounds. You can feel the power of a horse. And when you hear horse, you hear power. You hear endurance. You know, it inspires this incredibly powerful, wild, and yet tamed animal. You know, the horse is really a strong symbol because it retains its wildness, but it has served humanity for centuries. So it's domesticated and wild at the same time. But it's also the element of fire, and it's yang. Yang is masculine. So next year, 2027, is fire yin, fire feminine. This year is fire masculine. So we're all in this masculine, fire, air
Direction.
We do.
expansion and energy moving out of center, out. So the year of the fire horse is the Chinese calendar seems to capture what the Western astrology breaks, so to speak. And the fire horse is exactly that energy of no compromise, of risk-taking, of adventure, and it is volatile. But it's creative. So those who are born in 1966 have a fire horse return. You know, it's a 60-year cycle. So the 66ers, anyone here? No. They're a wild bunch. Yeah. Now, this eclipse is not made equal like others. It's a very unique eclipse. Has anyone researched it a little bit? Do you know about it?
I'm sure Cassie did. Oh, no.
Now, eclipses happen when the sun and the moon come together. It's either a new moon or a full moon. But we have full moon and new moon every month. So what's different with an eclipse is that the eclipse intersect with the path of the Earth, and it creates this big effect. Astrologically, we look at the nodal axis. If the lunation, the new moon, is close to the nodes, it's an eclipse. For those who understand the terms. Now, you see that the eclipse is 10 degrees away from the nodes, which means it's not total. It's a partial solar eclipse. So it won't cover the whole disk. You know, there won't be the big effect of darkness. What are eclipses? You know, because it is such a visual experience, and the sun is such an important symbol in every culture. When suddenly the sun was eclipsed, people freaked out. It was a feeling that, there's something dangerous and we need to stay indoors. And so there was a lot of ritual and ceremony and, protective measures to make sure that we're safe during the eclipse. Today, we understand them better. And from an astrological point of view, what I will say is that eclipses are a time where fate overrides free will. So all year long, you're doing your own thing, you're making your own decision, you're saying, I want this, I want that. When the eclipse comes, and it's a period of time, it's not just the actual day. It starts before and it stretches outside. So it's a period of 6 weeks, pretty much.
Can you repeat that? Eclipse overrides fate.
No, fate overrides free will. So what happens during eclipses? Think about the lights are out because the sun's symbolically or physically gone. So you have, you're blindfolded, and things happen in your life very quickly. The shifts are very quick. Things that you've been waiting for. Your house is on the market and it's not selling, and then the eclipse comes and boom, the seller comes, and in the space of 3 days, it's a done deal. Eclipses accelerate everything. They intensify everything. And like I said, you're blindfolded, you don't see it coming. When you take the blindfold out, suddenly your life looks different. The furniture is rearranged. There's some kind of higher divine intervention. Another legend about eclipses is that kings and queens are born and die during eclipses. And that doesn't only relate to royalty, but to people who come here with a special purpose. So people who are born on eclipses usually have a sense that there's a greater fate, there's a greater purpose. They're not just here to survive and, lead a safe life. They're here on a mission of some sort. So there's a stronger sense of purpose. But it happens to be also that, Prince William is born on a solar eclipse, and Princess Kate, his wife, is born on a lunar eclipse. It happens to be that a lot of the royalties have moons on their nose. It's interesting.
I just looked up Prince Charles, and his Uranus is 28 Gemini.
Wow. Uranus 20, yeah.
Yeah.
And he's born on a lunar,
Right.
a wide lunar eclipse.
Yeah.
His moon in Taurus, sun in Scorpio. You see that at the time, Saturn and Neptune will already be both in Aries. 0-0 Aries. They're not yet on the same minute. The conjunction is 3 days later, but they're already in the new sign. So it's in motion. Okay, so what we're going to talk about Saturn, Neptune, just the next step, but just pay attention that all these things are happening mid-February. Like your Valentine's Day is going to be eventful.
So don't buy any roses. No chocolates.
Why not?
Or more of it.
Extras.
One of the reasons why this is particularly important, we have eclipses every year, and we each are activated differently. I will say, a disclaimer. I mentioned how dramatic the eclipses can get and how they can change your life and how they can accelerate processes. But for some people, it doesn't happen. Okay, we're not activated all the same way because our chart will respond to some eclipses more than others. That's why you come to the astrologer for a private consultation, because he's going to look at your chart and see how you are affected. But on a global level, this eclipse is rising in Washington, D.C. So when the eclipse happens, you look east, it's going to be right there, rising. This is a big deal, because when we have a celestial event like that, we look what parts of the world may be more, like I said, not everyone it relates the same way. How does it activate our chart? So this happens to activate Washington, D.C. This is the chart for Washington, D.C. So you see it's right there, same degree, almost same minute. You know,
Wow.
and the eclipse squares the ruler, Uranus. So what rules Aquarius? Uranus. Square. What degree is Trump's ascendant? Those who know. What degree is Trump's Mars? 28 Leo.
Oh boy.
His Mars is 26 Leo. So this eclipse is right on his Mars, on Washington. Kings are born and die on eclipses.
Yes.
Something's gonna shift.
So like he could be a born again Christian.
It can happen in all kinds of ways.
Exactly.
It can happen in all kinds of ways. You know, I was speaking with a colleague, and I was telling, you know, that eclipse it's right there, right? And she says, Trump eats eclipses for breakfast. There's something true about that.
He needs to go to Florida then.
He's very
Talk to her
resilient.
and she's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe he's going to be in Florida, but it doesn't matter because it affects the area of Washington, right? So even if you're not locally where the eclipse occurs, because, you know,
Still affected.
it's not a physical thing. It's not just a physical thing. But yeah, there is something about what's going on in the politics of the United States and Donald Trump in particular that's going to be very important. There's a risk for health issues as well as political issues. What is the risk for Aquarius from a health point of view if an eclipse is opposing your Mars in Leo? What, you know, if you know that ahead of time and you're an astrologer and you consult with your client, what can you tell them? What can you suggest to mitigate, to support them in this process?
Is Leo the heart?
Yeah. So cardiovascular risk. Aquarius specifically has to do with strokes.
Sudden changes as well.
Sudden change, no, beginning with health, and then it can be other changes. But as far as health is concerned, there's vulnerability. Okay? And so this is a time that can also be a breakthrough, that can also bring new ideas, new projects. For Trump, it's in his sixth house, 7-6, right? Because he's 28, 29 Leo rising, so it's right in that range.
So Aquarius, so it could be like a blood clot in his legs too, or something like that.
I mean, cardiovascular risks in one way or another. But it could also mean that there are issues with the party. We talk about alliances. So Aquarius is the parties, the Republicans. It's those who are my friends. So when the Aquarius eclipse opposes Mars, there could be tension, rivalry, or rebellion in the party. Okay? Now, I want to touch on the Saturn-Neptune conjunction. You see it's at 0, 0, 0. For those who don't know, 0, 0 is the start of the zodiac. That's where the astrology begins. It's the birthing point. So you have two big planets who meet every 37 years, who are on the inception degree of the zodiac. What happened 37 years ago, 1989? Yeah.
What? I didn't hear.
The wall.
Berlin Wall.
I'm an East German.
So you remember.
Almost definitely.
So Saturn is walls, Neptune is erosion, it's dissolving. So this symbolism of having a wall break down and dissolve like that, unexpectedly, is very symbolic. This means when Saturn and Neptune come together, that things that we think are there forever, there's been undercurrents that were not visible that started to erode the foundations. So things that appear tall and strong and resilient can fold, crumble, collapse. Empires, you know, we talk about Iran, we talk about, leaders who appear invincible, who may suddenly be very vulnerable. What we see, because this has been in the making, they've been dancing together for a year or two. This is going to be a climax of this time. So what we see is that a lot of the old order is falling apart. Some are trying to grab the old and try to hold on to it. It may not hold, so don't fight it. But you may see that people, we're stepping out of politics for now, you may feel that people who you thought were strong, companies that you thought would be there forever, symbols of strength and power, suddenly become extremely vulnerable. So it can lead to bankruptcies, it can lead to health issues, it can lead to the dissolution of the rock. So Neptune is the ocean, Saturn is the rock. When we look at the waves crashing on the rock, it seems like the rock is there forever. It's withstanding the waves. But over time, water wins. Rock starts to erode. I mean, in Sedona, it's beautiful because of that. Right? It's all erosion, and it creates these beautiful patterns.
So would that be more of a repeat of 1989, or would it be a continuation? Would it be a resolving theme, or would it be a repeat?
Symbolically, it's a similar energy, where something big, like the Soviet Union, is suddenly folding. Things that we thought would be there forever are showing, their signs of fragility. Now, it's a test. It doesn't mean that everyone will go bankrupt, right? We're not, it depends how it affects our charts, but it is a time where we're humbled. That's part of the message. It's humbling. Because you thought you were above it, and you suddenly realize, I need help. I will not continue this way. So there's some kind of energy that cannot make you overconfident. What is the remedy? We talked about wounds and remedies. What is the remedy of Saturn Neptune? What is the, we talk in evolutionary astrology, we don't look at the chart just say, this is good, this is bad. We want to understand what the intention is. What's the intention of Saturn Neptune? Why does it erode? And how does it actually work?
Unseen opportunities.
How so?
Things that seem normal, realistic, are disappearing, and you have to recognize that your choices that are normal to you or common are gone.
Yeah.
And with that comes an opportunity to expand and realize that to challenge yourself to think of other choices.
So, this is going to affect, if you know your chart, those of you who have early cardinal degree planets, early Aries, early Cancer, early Libra, early Capricorn, are more immediately affected. You may know your sun sign, you may know your moon degrees. That is, again, not everyone is going to feel it the same way, even though it's big in the zeitgeist.
Is there also something about, let's preference this meeting right now, like growing up in East Germany, we could see it coming, but we didn't know it was coming.
Yeah.
Because nobody tells you when the wall opens, not when you live behind the wall. It's just unfathomable.
So I want, someone asked, is it going to be the same or not? Go back in history. 1917 was a Saturn Neptune conjunction. The Russian Revolution, the end of the monarchy, the beginning of the Soviet Empire, that then collapsed in '89. So it started under a Saturn Neptune, and it crashed under a Saturn Neptune. This is usually what happens with it's a clock. We're talking about timing, right?
Is there something about being an internal revolution?
Of course.
Okay.
Of course. But it dissolves what is not strong enough, what is not sustainable. And, it's not always for the better. We have to understand that realistically. Sometimes it brings a new dawn, a new opportunity. But, we had 80 years of a Soviet dictatorship come out of this revolution. So it wasn't always a better result.
Every 39 years it happens with Russia, because in 53 Stalin died.
And Putin was born.
Yeah, exactly. So it's that same cycle Russia's had through the last century.
And the wall went up in 51.
And in 61. Putin was born with that. Okay? And we're going to look at his chart soon. Anyway, mid-February, make your plans. Coming soon after, eclipses always come in pairs. So there's a solar eclipse, 2 weeks later a lunar eclipse. Sometimes first the lunar, sometimes first the solar. The solar is on February 17, the lunar is on March 3, and it's going to be 12 degrees Virgo Pisces. Most of our eclipses in 2025 were in Virgo Pisces. Another thing, those of you who know about degrees and your chart, the other thing you need to pay attention to is the degree of the nodes. The nodes are at 8 Pisces. Why? Because during eclipses, the nodes freeze on the same degree for at least 6 weeks. So the degree of the node becomes a power degree. So if you have anything, not just on the eclipse degrees, but on the nodal degree, that planet is going to be on steroids.
Say that again?
Sorry?
That steroids
So if you have a planet on that,
degree.
okay,
A Virgo or Pisces. So for that eclipse, the 8th degree of Pisces Virgo is the activation point. What have we noticed? What do we know, those of you who are more of, seasoned in astrology, what's Virgo Pisces about?
Structure and no structure.
limits and limitless, maybe.
I mean, it's earth and water, right?
Ritual.
One is control Virgo, no control Pisces.
Let's say Virgo is more physical, practical realm versus Pisces, dreamland, behind the
So,
A victim volunteer.
victim, volunteer. It's a health axis. And it's a employment axis. Virgo Pisces represents service. It represents all our professional orientation. So what has happened in 2025, major reforms in the health department. RFK doing a lot of changes. Some of us like it, some of us don't, but it's changed because the eclipses are in Virgo Pisces, and it changes the way we look at things medically. A lot of people were laid off in 2025, lost their jobs. What is the risk of Virgo Pisces? You want to find your true profession. You want to find your true service. So in a positive way, it's an opportunity for you to actually be inspired to say, this is what I want to do. And so there may be changes in your professional environment in March. Changes that can be a promotion. It could be a change of bosses. Your boss is moving away, or it may be that robots are coming. Right? Because that's the big employment shift that is happening in our generation. As these eclipses occur in Virgo Pisces, part of the reason why they're draining Washington is because there's a lot of technology that's going to replace humans. And so this creates reforms in the employment sector. So all of us are going through some kind of change, which can be, again, a boost, it can be an opportunity, or it can be a pressure to reinvent yourself. And each generation faces it, right? In the 1700s, it was the steam engines that replaced people. And then the internet came, and we didn't need travel agents any longer, because we could book our flights online, and we could do everything, we could design our website. So each generation brings its own revolution in the jobs that are available or saturated, and the jobs that are dying, and the new jobs that are being created. But it's hard to be in transition, because you lose your sense of security and stability, which is part of this Virgo Pisces. Virgo is, I have my routine, I know what I want, I know what my schedule is, and Pisces says, whatever. Right? The wave is washing off whatever you draw in the sand. Beautiful. So we can expect changes around that time in employment, and you mentioned health for the Saturn Neptune. That is also
Gym membership.
a need. Gym membership, yes, and cutting carbs. Interestingly, just side note, Mr. Exeth has his Mars on that eclipse. He's the Secretary of War.
Great.
I won't dwell too much on that. So back,
There's a picture right there.
looking back at the Saturn Neptune, you know, we see the current big players as politically. In a negative expression, this influence represents the erosion and malfunction of systems and leaders, where role models wallow in inadequacy and morality loses ground. It can lead to disorientation, misguided choice, and the failure to measure up to tasks. So it can lead to anarchy, lawlessness, and lack of remorse. As the rock fissures, our trust in what was reliable fades. We may witness the collapse of regime, the fall of leaders and companies, and perhaps simply see them as more vulnerable. Conversely, this can be a time where the abused, invisible, or those ignored may gain strength, presence, and credibility. So it can be a turning of table that whoever was on top can suddenly find themselves at the bottom. Now think about Saturn, Neptune. You know, like we say, it's been going on for a while. Neptune is porous. It's the ocean. It leaks. Saturn wants boundaries. So you see what's going on with ice. It's totally Saturn, Neptune. Trying to control, to reinstate the border because there's a fear that Neptune will dissolve the borders. So it's kind of the fight against Neptune, trying to kind of put the sticks and prevent leakages. But what's the message?
You can't plug 1,000 holes.
How, you know, can you fence the ocean?
That's like, yeah, exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
There's a limit to what can be done and not. So on the one hand, Saturn says enough. Enough of this lax, enough of this permissive, enough of looking the other way. Indulgence. And Neptune says, you know, the water wins the rock. I'll have the last word. So it's an interesting power play between these two. Ideology against empathy, the same thing. Neptune is charity, empathy, the vulnerable, wanting to support, you know, those who don't have means. Saturn says, get a job. And so this battle between, you know, there's fraud in Minnesota where, you know, people abused welfare that led to a scandal. That is very Saturn Neptune, because Neptune is welfare and Saturn is stop the abuse. But on the other hand, this can also lead to the dismantling of USAID. And hundreds of thousands of people are dying and don't have medicine. So there's a big crisis about what is too much and what is not enough, and how to be, on the one hand, charitable, understand the vulnerable, versus preventing abuse. Preventing abuse at the borders, preventing abuse with social systems. And usually the way humanity works is we go from one extreme to the other. Like the middle way, wisdom, next life. We want to go into all, you know, completely permissive, or nothing at all. Let's starve everyone.
This does make sense, because after the war came down, it was almost like a land without rules and regulation for a year and a half. Anything was possible.
It's a bit of an anarchy.
It was totally anarchy.
Wow.
So again, the question is, are we smart enough to bring balance, to do something that is both healthy, but also realistic? So humanitarian program, abuse of welfare, erosion of ethics, rotation of leadership. So we can expect during this time of, again, Iran is very, very vulnerable during this particular cycle. And if Iran collapses, it's going to change the world. It's not a local conflict. There's a lot of oil there. So there are going to be a lot of reshuffling. Always look, this is just a side note, for those of you who are more seasoned astrologers, always look at the equinox chart, March 21st, as a predictive chart, because this chart sets the tone for the year to come.
Actual New Year, the real New Year.
Sorry?
It's the real New Year.
It is. It is the real astronomical year. And astrological. And it's actually astrology day. It is on the equinox. So this whole, I just wanted to bring it up, not just to kind of share those techniques, but to realize that the sun will be conjunct Saturn, Neptune, the big players, because it's on that conception degree, adding to the fact that this is not just happening in January, it's going to set the tone for the whole year. What did we say because so many things are happening in Aries, always look at Mars. Mars is going to be on the North Node. In the sign of Pisces, water, naval, submarines. I won't get, again, too much into that because we're going to have to camp here.
Yeah.
What do you think,
do we have a time limit?
We are open-ended.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
We can create tents with... So I'm talking about Mars. Mars is a big player. As we move into the equinox in the spring, April 19 is another one of these milestones. Because Mars meets Neptune and then Saturn. So Mars advances faster. And in the course of April, it's going to conjunct Neptune, and then there's this interesting conjunction on April 19, where both Mars, Saturn, and Mercury are on the same degree. Wow. Anyone seven cardinal? Anything?
My Mars is at 10.
Yeah, same.
My sun and moon are 6.
We'll stay away.
Fair enough.
So, what does that mean? Think about it this way. We have something going on. We have these planets rotating, and they create some kind of energy, a climate. But when they actually meet, when they lock into each other, there's an event. So it's not just a feeling, it's not just up in the air, there's something that is factual, that is tangible, that is activated around those times. So this is why we note these dates, is because they are basically when the energy crystallizes into something. Any clues about Mars, Mercury, Saturn coming together?
In Aries.
In Aries.
Revolution and pushback.
Pushback.
Could be a big speech. Really moving one, yeah.
You're trying to shut down speech.
Mm.
You want to get rid of the First Amendment. They
So
want to get rid of the First Amendment.
The internet going out?
Sorry. Who started this? Come on.
Oh,
As it goes out.
We're going to run out of energy this year.
Yeah, this is very simple.
It's a real fire.
That's a lesson. Exactly it. Running out, improvise, troubleshoot, be ready to restart your engine. Now, what we can sometimes do with astrology when we have this configuration is to project them on the globe and see what areas of the world are more activated. So for the eclipse, we saw Washington, D.C. For this one, it hits Chicago, it hits London and kind of Paris, and it hits Nepal and Kathmandu. So what is it? What is this energy? We said speeches, First Amendment, it's combative. Mars, Saturn usually bring military stuff.
And Aries.
Yeah. So there's something about army, about defense, and about strategy, which can also mean, like we said, how is the government triggering this, and how are people reacting? Because it's a year of no compromising. So this can lead to power struggles with authority figures. Now, authority figures is not just the government. It can be your boss, it can be your parents, it can be your children, because you're the authority. It's not just you versus the authority, it can also be, if you're an authority, if you're the CEO, there can be some pushback. Okay? But what is the intention?
New connections.
Sovereignty, again. Asserting your will. How to feel empowered, Aries, how to feel empowered in your leadership. So, the reason why we may be butting heads is that there may be too many leaders in the same room. And so everyone wants to command. And that's why I said, maybe take your distance. Maybe take a break. Because the energy is a little charged, it's a little contentious. Or maybe a lot. But it is a time where there can be challenges of the power struggles between leaders or with leaders. So mark this time. On another side note, I will just say it, because astrology can be used for preventing purposes. We're not just looking, this is the worst case scenario, and it's all, going to be inflamed. But if we are aware, we can also navigate this properly. This is a very strategic energy, for goals and plans. But this is not a time to go skiing. Going on the vortexes. Why? It's injury prone. It's very physical. Mars is physical. Saturn is physical. You could fall. So if it hits a strategic point, avoid extreme sports. Avoid things that are too physically risky. And that's part of the use of astrology, is to know that, okay, this energy is there, I'm going to use it in the best way I know, but I'm also going to be aware of the risk to prevent medical bills.
Don't fly. Don't fly.
I will say don't defy the mountain. Know your boundaries. Mars, Saturn. Know your limits. Know your own body.
Probably good to slow down.
It's funny because on the one hand you want to be safer and slow down. On the other hand, you have this Mars energy that tells you go, go, go. So how to direct it the right way is the key, because you may not be able to just slow down. There may be tasks, and they need you here, and so you are actually on the go. I want to move forward. Just, this is Trump's chart. I won't get too much into it, but just showing you the eclipse is going to be here, and the Saturn Neptune is going to oppose his Neptune. So if you want to know more about that, just watch my videos on YouTube. There's a lot of unpacking there, and you'll see it more graphically. Just a note on Putin and alliances. This whole Russian-Ukraine drama happened mostly because of NATO, right?
89.
And look, the sun of Putin is exactly opposing the sun of NATO. Saturn and NATO is Aries. So NATO is going to be very affected by these cycles since it's an Aries entity. So all these planets are going to over. We just saw Saturn, Mars. Here's NATO's Mars. Changes are coming to Europe.
It's the cycle of the 1989.
It's similar.
Yeah.
Now I want to fast forward to the summer. Because the summer brings these incredible alignment of all these slow-moving planets with Neptune, Uranus, Jupiter, in this kind of perfect configuration. This is happening July, August. And I'm not specific on the date because they kind of morph in and out. And then the moon, on that day, the moon joins in, the moon is fast moving, and then Venus comes in, and then Mercury comes in. So you have this slow moving planet that kind of create this template. And the fast moving planet take turns meeting those degrees. And so you see, for Aquarius, for Aries, Chiron is early Taurus. This is for Gemini, for Leo. So this is unique. It never happens, especially not having all three slowest moving with Jupiter and Saturn close by. The last time something close to that happened was 1965 with the Uranus-Pluto Neptune sextile. And 1965 was the beginning of Gen Z, of Gen X, a new generation. What was Generation X about? 1965, late 60s, revolutions, right? A lot of social rights, social justice, revolution in relationships, consciousness, the new age taking off, the Vietnam War and that anti-war movement.
It's the first liberated generation, wasn't it?
They, and we went to the moon, right? So it's also a lot of exploration and also a lot of social justice issues.
And wasn't the supercomputer introduced then as well?
It started in the 50s, but it kind of, there was a milestone.
Yeah, milestone, that Uranus
Technology.
conjunction.
The next time this occurred was in 1993, with Uranus, Neptune coming together, sextiling Pluto. 1993, the internet revolution, and the beginning of Generation Z, who was born into technology. So we see this very important movements starting when these big players come together. It's a little different. What is the difference between those years and 2026? In 65 and 93, it happened in water, earth signs. Now it happens in fire, air. So there's a complete change of elements. And in those years, there was also a conjunction. Here, there's no conjunction. They're all into this grand sextile. But something is being born that will last a generation. What is it about? One of the things I wanted to speak about with Neptune in Aries, and again, check the article on the website. Let me ask you, first of all, what do you feel could happen? I mean, we talked about conflicts and wars and tension and eclipses in Washington, which are very much part of 2026. But here we're talking longer term. We're talking about a new era.
Age of Aquarius?
I mean, what is the age of Aquarius?
Mass awakening.
Of what?
Consciousness.
Caused by what? What could lead? I mean, in 93 it was the birth of the internet, right?
AI.
So there's something happens in the zeitgeist that affects consciousness on an individual level.
I think there's self-discovery of spirit and soul.
Spirit and soul and soul journeys.
Right.
What else could trigger like a paradigm shift?
AI.
Aliens and AI.
Mushrooms in the water.
Transhumanism.
For the nerd. And more connection to divine feminine and divine masculine with an individual.
Hopefully with Neptune in Aries, because it's very masculine energy. But Neptune can transform it.
Well, Neptune.
One of the things that, think of Aries. Aries, we said, is your power. It's how do you sustain yourself? How do you power your life? How do we power our grid? How do we power our spirits? Right? What is Neptune? If Aries is energy, what is Neptune?
Air.
You know, what's really interesting is you're talking about harvesting energy, and they're starting to harvest energy from the bottom of the ocean now. They're like finding new ways to go to the bottom of the ocean and pull up. Is it titanium, or I'm not sure what kind of rare is it?
Could be, that's one direction, but this, one of the messages of Neptune in Aries is universal energy.
Coming from someone else.
Unlimited amounts of energy.
That was everything.
Tesla was born with this kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, as I said, humanity meets a crisis where it runs out of energy. And we may go through blackouts, power grid crisis. That will then, you know, whether it's the risk or the reality of power failure, will propel the need to create new sources of energy. And there already, you know, a lot is going on. I don't know if you're aware of it. In December, they shot dead in, you know, you remember the gun violence episode in Brown University? Where somebody went in and the next day or so, this same guy went and shot a professor. And this professor happened to be on the verge of creating an alternative sun and knowing the technology to extract infinite solar energy on the planet. So he was killed. But this is where we're going. Because if he is on it, even if
Yeah,
he's eliminated, it's in the ether.
exactly.
This is the
It's
sign,
already
guys. This is where we're headed.
It's already-
And it can create also this, what we talked about, this feeling that we can do it, we can go, we can create, this sense of adventure. These planets say, whatever we think now that is, there's much more. There's a new reservoir of reality.
The impossible is possible.
The impossible today is not going to be the same.
Yep.
So
In
the
the
answer
coming
is in the Star of David at 4 degrees Sagittarius.
I mean, it's enough that something shows up here, a moon or a...
Which would, yeah.
So this takes us to a place where the message of Neptune in Aries is fine, because Neptune is limitless. Neptune is beyond time and space, and it's in the sign of energy. And that is part of the intention, is to be powered by something much larger than us, more, that is not necessarily material. Interesting. Things to look forward to, but to know that the road to get there is full of challenges, diversions, and crushes and reignitions. But I suspect that both new space discoveries as well as new supplies of energy are going to be the factors that will change civilization. And everybody's going to love astrology.
They already do, they just don't know.
See it in that chart?
Look at that! We're in Aquarius.
Going back to '89, there was a dynamic, especially from the people on the eastern side, that saw opportunity and saw solution and all these things. And when the wall came down, there was disillusion because they couldn't fathom the possibilities. There was too much of it.
Exactly. You're very right. And this is a very Neptunian experience.
Yeah.
That on the one hand, there's something amazing happening, but it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
You can't control it yet. You don't know what to do with it. And it can, then what happens is the contraction.
Yeah, I'm
You
scared.
know,
Let's go back to the old.
Yeah, let's
because
go
we were
back and
comfort-
try to recreate it.
Yeah.
It's a very good point. And I think that this is very much on point because fire and air are so fast. You know, the changes occur rapidly and we don't have the water to integrate.
Unbeknownst to us, it's like you wake up in a different world.
And it's like, well, it's next, and it's next, you know, and there's a new technology, and we don't have time to absorb it. We don't have time to test it. Then, 2008 comes in, and that's where the audit and the accounting and, what stays and what goes becomes relevant. Any questions? I won't go into November because it's just too much for.
Part 2.
Yeah, I don't want to overwhelm you
Same
with
time tomorrow.
too many.
It hasn't been for a while.
Any questions?
So masterful.
So hard to put the years on, I don't wanna share it.
I think if anything, I could say that for people that didn't realize what's coming because they were living their old ways, it's an opportunity to not be scared, to rather look at it from the standpoint of let go of the chains that you think you didn't have and free yourself of old things and look at things in a different way.
Yeah, I would say that that is definitely part of the message, but it's also knowing the risks. Because the risks are just like I said, the Wild West. When something is new, there's excitement, but there's also greed.
A lot of turmoil.
A lot of turmoil because everyone wants a piece of it and everyone wants to control it. The same thing that is happening with the Arctic. You know, the Arctic is melting, and that creates new routes. And everyone wants to put their flags down. Talking about the bottom of the ocean, they're now planting flags at the bottom of the ocean to mark territory because of resources and all, you know, the untapped stuff that's going to be accessible when the ice is melting. So with new opportunity also come greed, and unfortunately it's part of the game. So again, closing our eyes and coming into prayer for humanity, let us harmonize with nature, harmonize with the sky. We are astrologers, conduits of the two realms, with the heart at the center. May we be protected as we advance into these new grounds, new realities, new consciousness. May we never forget where we're coming from as we step into the future. And most importantly, may we remember the guidance of ancestors and be humble as we face these opportunities. Protection, compassion, and love. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maurice. Such an honor to have you. Thank you for speaking with us. I just want to give a shout out to the Dragon's Den, who hosted us and has been our sponsor for a lot of our events. It's Earth Love Organic Kitchen. They have amazing food and drinks. And then you can come over here. They have the gift shop that you've seen, and they also do tours. So if you have family visiting in town, they have like one of the best like comprehensive one-day tours of Sedona. So I just want to give a shout out to Ryan. He's not here, but he facilitated this for us tonight. So. And we have an amazing event next Sunday coming up this end of this week. If you want to check it out, we have details on our website. It's www.astrologyclubsedona. So check it out.
So,
He's so good.
I have the mailing list here for those who want the slides. Anyone who wants to add their name, it's now or never. And
Bye guys. Oh, there you go. Bye online audience.